starting to get the sense here that Democrats are concerned that the Trump administration may do to them in this period between now and January what was done to the Trump administration. You'll see it. It comes up. They can't really hide it. There's a fear that they have. And they're really hoping that we just forget all about the clear effort to undermine the peaceful transition of power with the Russia collusion probe. I do wish we at least had the Durham report out by now. It's really shameful that that hasn't happened. I knew that it wasn't going to result in arrests and all the things that people were in conservative media world were promising, unfortunately. But I also feel like it would be useful at this stage to at least have that, because if it waits and then you do have a Biden administration, it's all over, folks. Right? If it waits, if it's held back, it's going to be they'll give a public statement from the Office of Public Affairs in DOJ saying, it turns out the Durham probe didn't find anything. The end. That's what you'd get under a Biden administration. You won't even have any additional facts or data released. Nothing. But it's amazing right now to see how the Democrats, who were a part, in particular, of the coup plot against the president in 2016, which is what it was. I mean, they were trying to tear down, destroy, and undo an election. That's what Russia collusion was all about. It was a lie. It was a lie for people that were emotionally so wounded by Hillary's loss that they would latch on to anything, including people who were very senior in the federal bureaucracy, including some of the most powerful Democrats in the country. And we've now seen beyond any reasonable doubt that the whole thing was a fraud, a fabrication. It was a weapon used against Trump and his supporters. Because you're hearing people like Adam Schiff, who is definitely in the top 3 and maybe the single biggest liar in politics today. I mean, in Congress for sure. You got Adam Schiff, who was running around saying that he had seen evidence of collusion, that he knew it was there, just said whatever he had to say to keep that machinery going so they could stay on offense against Trump. Here he is saying he's concerned about the next, that the sabotage for the next administration could occur right now. Play 6.
Perhaps equally dangerous are the people that he is replacing these agency heads with. And these are unqualified partisan hacks that really don't have the policy chops, and they're not being put in there for that reason. And if we're not careful, they could create foreign policy crises in waiting for the new administration. And of course, Donald Trump wouldn't care anything about that. One of the other points we emphasized, you brought up the trial at the beginning of the segment, in the trial is the one thing you can rely on with Donald Trump is he will do what's in his personal interest. He doesn't care what it means to the country. And if he can sabotage the next administration, he will do it. If he can retaliate against his enemies, he will do it. If he can stay in office and essentially vacate the election, he will do it.
Now, Adam Schiff will lie, because that's all this guy does. He will do it. He will lie. The things that he brings up there, though, going after enemies, using the government to sabotage an incoming administration, that's what Obama did. That is what the Democrats did in 2016. I think that's something we all have to remember. I'm not willing to let that just pass by now because it's inconvenient to the Democrat unity and normalcy narrative. Sure. What was done to the Trump team coming into power was a scandal that should have shaken this country to its foundations. But the primary apparatuses for the dissemination of information, the corporate media and big tech, social media platforms, are in the Democrats' pocket, as we know. So they stretched it out so far, and they were so willing to be dishonest. Remember when they got all angry at Attorney General Barr because he said there was spying on he's been the Attorney General before. He's as qualified as any human being on the planet to hold this job right now. And he said, yeah, I think it's called spying, folks. I think when you're using electronic surveillance of somebody's private communications without their knowledge or consent and not even going to a real court, going through the FISA court to do it, I think that's called spying. People also refer to the FISA court, which was used to go after Carter Page, who did nothing wrong. Nothing. I remember sitting down with Carter Page and talking to him. And I said, Carter, you're going out, you're giving all these interviews, and I'm just worried that, they're coming after you. And he was talking to the Mueller probe, and we know the Mueller people were looking for even the smallest misremembrance, the smallest infraction of fact into any testimony about anything to nail somebody with a 1001 federal criminal charge, right? Lying to federal investigators. And Carter looked at me, he's just like, but Buck, I did nothing wrong. I can say, I'll tell them everything I said, everything I did. He's like, I got nothing to hide. I did nothing wrong. Now, I'm just going to tell you, that's still not a good idea for those of you that ever, remember what I would say? Never talk to the FBI. Just don't forget that advice. Don't ever talk to them. You get a lawyer present, you set it all up beforehand, maybe fine. Never talk to the FBI alone. Ever, ever. If you're in the FBI, you should not talk to somebody else from the FBI in an investigative capacity of you, if they're looking at your misconduct alone. So never, ever, ever. But Carter Page was doing that. He was going around giving interviews. He was testifying to the special counsel and going on TV at night and talking about, because he's that innocent of any wrongdoing, did nothing. In fact, helped the federal government, helped the intelligence agencies and the FBI to deal with efforts at Russian penetration of American secrets and national security interests. And they betrayed him. Imagine you're Carter Page. Imagine you are a veteran of the United States Navy who has actively worked to assist the federal government to find would-be Russian spies and saboteurs, and you are then betrayed by the very people that you are in good faith helping because they needed an excuse to pretend that there was a big conspiracy involving an incoming administration with a very icky, bad orange man. Wouldn't you be furious? See all your phone calls, all your emails. And I just think also of all the times I had to debate Democrats on this, and they just were lying. Oh, the FISA court would never rely on the dossier. Oh, the FISA court would never be subject to abuse for political reasons. They just hid behind all these slogans, phrases, talking points. Bull crap. No accountability for it. If anything, I've said this to you before, they built up their careers even more. I mean, there are people on the left who are true morons. I mean, real imbeciles who don't know anything about anything, who wrote books about Russia collusion, and they sold copies, who gained huge social media followings because of their stance on Russia collusion. And there's been no downside to this at all. You know why? Because it was useful against Trump. The truth did not matter. These people who lecture us all the time, these Democrats who are constantly grasping for another way to have a conversation about how Trump lies, they were perfectly happy to use the lies about the Trump administration as a political weapon. And they knew what they were doing was wrong. And they knew what they were doing was misleading people. It didn't matter. It's justified. Trump derangement syndrome means anything goes. So that's why you have Adam Schiff concerned about sabotaging the next administration. And really, we're worried about on foreign policy matters. Obama escalated against Russia. Remember that? After the election. It wasn't serious enough that Obama would do anything before the election because they all thought Hillary was going to win. But when Hillary didn't win, oh my gosh, this Russia collusion stuff, we need to start expelling Russian diplomats and putting sanctions on wealthy Russian oligarchs. And Trump expanded those sanctions, by the way. But they're hoping they can get away with this rapid rewriting of the past. And then on MSNBC, they want everyone to know, and there better not be any investigations going on of a Biden presidency. Play 4.
But what they want to focus on is investigating. They want to go after Hunter Biden still. They want to go after the investigations that led to impeachment, a time in which I think for a lot of people, you sort of became the modern day Thaddeus Stevens, making your arguments against Trump during impeachment. They want to go after the Mueller probe again. Is this what we're going to have to sit through for the next 4 years? Republicans just doing investigations and refusing to legislate?
Well, we may. Certainly, I think you're absolutely right about the fact that this wouldn't be going on right now. This obstruction of the transition wouldn't be going on if Republicans weren't allowing it to go on. Indeed, that's been the story of the last 4 years.
The story of the last 4 years is what? The Republican obstruction of Trump? What kind of garbage is this guy spewing now? I mean, obviously, that's not what he's saying, but it doesn't even make any sense. Obstructing what? Oh, the investigations that they freely conducted that were all in bad faith around Russia collusion, the lies, the misrepresentations to the court, the people that had to get fired after long careers at the FBI because they were Democrat hacks. Oh, yeah, James Comey's fired and the FBI agents are all crying in the hallways. Those were real news reports. That adult humans, I don't even care if they work at the FBI, cried because James Comey got fired. Oh, no. Oh, it's so sad. Yeah. No investigations of a Democrat administration. Remember that. I'm going to just take you through something here that jog our collective memories. There was a special counsel against Trump, as we know, Russia collusion. It was a farce. And then they impeached him anyway. And there was, of course, the investigations that were leading up to the impeachment, too. So they were presenting evidence. So they used investigation as the most vicious, dishonest weaponization they possibly could against the Trump administration. Don't forget, they did the same thing against Bush. They got a special counsel to go headhunting within the, against the Bush administration. They thought they were going to get Karl Rove or Dick Cheney. That was the whole point. They thought they were going to nail one of them because of a journalist having a conversation that they claimed outed a CIA officer. This is something I know a bit about, folks, who was in no jeopardy or danger, who was exposing herself to all kinds of obvious questions about what she was doing, what her husband was doing with. I mean, she posed on the cover of Vanity Fair after this happened. Give me a break. The whole thing was like a PR stunt. Oh, my career is ruined, except she got a $1 million book deal to write crappy fiction nobody ever read. Oh, it was so terrible. It was the weaponization of this against me. They had a special counsel. They investigated everybody in the White House to find out the source of a leak, that they knew the source of the leak. It was Richard Armitage before they did anything. They knew right away as soon as the special counsel was announced. Armitage came forward and said, look, it was a mistake. I didn't know. I'm sorry. But they didn't say, oh, don't worry, you're fine. They said, well, maybe we'll prosecute you. You do everything we say and you shut your mouth and let us go around looking for a Bush administration scalp. They did that. Okay. So we have a Republican administration special counsel. We have Obama. Go back another one. Republican administration special counsel. But no investigations of Democrats. No, not allowed. You see, they can't hide it. They are concerned that we will do to them what they have done to us. And that would be really mean, and it would hurt our sacred democracy. You don't say. AOC and Manchin in West Virginia. She tweeted out, she has an enormous social media following, which does not speak well to the future of our republic, considering how many young people are influenced by someone who is among the most ignorant and dumbest members of the United States Congress. But anyway, she is tweeting out, she tweeted out this thing of her staring at Manchin because Manchin, the senator from West Virginia, has already said he will not go along with this nonsense, extremism from the left, and has called out defund the police and socialism as a bad idea. the fact that there's anyone in this country who still brings up defund the police as anything other than among the most mindless and destructive slogans you could have in politics is pretty mind-blowing in and of itself. But the AOC wing, remember this, they don't learn lessons about this stuff. They're not about to all of a sudden become normal in their outlook for America and for the future. They are radicals. They are committed. They really believe that this is what needs to happen, that this is the future of the country. And they're going to try and do everything they can to name and shame anyone in politics or in public life who, especially if they're a Democrat, I mean, apostasy, right? The crime of turning against your religion, leaving your religion. Apostasy within Democrat ranks will not be tolerated. They will not allow this. Can't have people start to say, hey, hold on a second. I didn't sign up for this Democrat Party, because the people inside who are the most committed are the far left. Once you get to the more mainstream Democrats, I mean, Pelosi is a Pelosiist, and she's all about political transactions and power. So she has no scruples or vision of the future. It's just, what does she need to do? What's best for Nancy Pelosi? Oh, they do love to say this about Trump, which I always find so funny. Here's Anderson Cooper, who's having a fun time talking about the president's slogan and how it's all selfishness. Play 10.
Aides telling CNN that he is now dejected and downcast. Not about the lack of ICU beds in Utah. No, he's dejected over losing the election, about himself. Sources also telling us his kids are split over what to do next. Not what to do about COVID, mind you. Not about those 1,435 Americans who died yesterday. No, the kids are split over what their daddy's next move should be. Should he accept defeat and try to salvage something of his legacy, or continue to make up claims of widespread voter fraud and lie to the very people who believe him most, his supporters? Keeping him honest, accepting defeat, it's not up to him. He was defeated. He lost. He lost an election that his own Department of Homeland Security tonight calls, quote, the most secure in American history. Let that sink in. The Department of Homeland Security calls it the most secure in American history. In other words, this shouldn't even be a thing, but it is. And as a consequence, we are watching America first give way to me first, and suspecting it was always that anyway.
Notice that Anderson Cooper slips in there. You know, if he would just concede, he could salvage some of his reputation here. Bend the knee. That's what that is. Bend the knee. We promise we'll make it easier for you. We promise it'll be better for you. Just bend the knee. What have we learned from Trump more than anyone else in the last 4 years? No. Do not bend the knee. Do not cave to their demands, because there's no benefit. Never mind stand tall, stand proud, stay in the fight, shields high. They're just going to use your bending the knee against you. I recently got a crash course in home title theft, and you better pray this crime never happens to you, because it can ruin you financially. It goes after your most valuable asset, your home. Here's how it works. The bad guys, cyber thieves, they find your home's title online. They look in the cloud on servers, because that's where it's stored. Then they use a quitclaim deed to kick you off, put themselves on, and take out loans against your home's equity. You often won't find out about this until you receive a payment demand in the mail, or perhaps even a foreclosure notice. The usual identity theft services do not protect you. You have to go with the professionals I trust at Home Title Lock. All you have to do is go to HomeTitleLock.com, use the promo code RADIO. That'll get you 30 free days of protection. You can also check online to see if you're a victim of this crime and don't even know it. HomeTitleLock.com, promo code RADIO. You'll get 30 free days of protection. Go to HomeTitleLock.com today. Speaking of bending the knee, with COVID cases here at a one-day all-time record, I think 150,000 in the U.S. is what they're saying. And with where we are with hospitalizations, you've got 67,096 yesterday nationwide, 12,796 COVID-19 patients in ICUs. We're about to have the chorus of "Listen to the science" shouted in our faces all the time. Listen to the science. Even from within some in the Trump administration. Let's understand this. Before I start bashing the liberal lunatics, which of course we will do, I think that even a lot of people that work for Trump, I think the Trump administration has been pushed into this corner where they often say and do things that are not helpful, or not what's the best way forward during this COVID pandemic. And here's Alex Azar of HHS. Play 5.
Well, if we've posted guidelines and recommendations at cdc.gov, coronavirus.gov, as you think about your Thanksgiving gathering, please address those circumstances there. Reduce the number of people at your gathering. If you can open the windows, let more ventilation in. We've got very practical things. Even if you have a ceiling fan, set it so it pulls the air up instead of down. Use single-use servings for individuals. Wear your face coverings, because I want to make sure, even if we make sacrifices this Thanksgiving and Christmas, those sacrifices are for a reason, so that everybody you want to be with will be here for next Thanksgiving and next Christmas.
And as I said, I'm grateful to you, Mr. Secretary, for saying that. I would be grateful, very pleased, if the President of the United States were to follow your lead and say the same thing, because there are a lot of Americans out there who support him, who are totally opposed to putting on a face mask, to wearing a mask, and that is so dangerous.
So on masking, as you know, an issue of particular contention for me, we had an all-time high of cases yesterday. Every data set you can find, every poll, all the numbers you can look at on masking, there is more universal adoption of masking in the United States now than at any point during the pandemic. And we just had an all-time record for cases yesterday. Well, what's going on? How well can they really work if, remember, people with masks on are still getting sick constantly? If it works the way they tell us, why doesn't it, completely, you breathe in and it catches the droplets and then the virus doesn't get into the air? Really? How effective are they? You got, in places like New York, they estimate 80 to 90% constant mask adoption, meaning people are wearing masks, or compliance, you could say, wearing masks whenever they're in public, whenever they're indoors with people, all the time, right? Completely obeying all these rules and regulations. Okay, so shouldn't we be fine? I ask this, I want people to think through this on their own. Somehow, and this is just a fact, this is just the truth. And they don't want you asking these questions. They just want you to obey. But we're now being told that a mask mandate will save over 100,000 lives. And it's such obvious science that we should all be masking up all the time that only a fool would question it. But somehow it also took our top experts at the CDC and the NIH months and tens of thousands of American deaths to figure out this super obvious thing, that masks are so good. They say the science changed, but they never explain how. Because whenever we say, well, I don't want to do this, they say it's not, even if it doesn't work that well, it's not that much of an imposition. Just do it. Just do it. All right. But if it's not that much of an imposition, but it's so obvious that it would work, when we thought this would have a 5%, as high as 5% were the early estimates, fatality rate, which could have led to a few million Americans dying from this. That was back in February, March timeframe. But why wouldn't they have said everyone mask up right away? Oh, now they claim it's because of asymptomatic cases, and they didn't know that. There's a lot of sort of, mealy-mouthed, stuff that they're saying. But no. They tell us now masking is no big deal. It's not that annoying. Buck, wear that mask on the treadmill. Don't complain about it. Just keep breathing in your own phlegm there. Just go for it. That's fine. Who cares? It's not too much of an imposition. Well, for the first 90 days of this, when people were dying all over the place and there was lots of spread of the virus, they were saying, don't wear a mask. Now you question it and they say, how dare you? Okay, what changed? They say it's asymptomatic cases. Well, that shouldn't have changed the, we should have just said everybody. And by the way, that's also a dodge, because even with the flu, we know that you are perhaps at your most contagious 24 hours before you show symptoms. So when they say that we didn't tell people to mask because only sick people should mask, it was only when we found out about asymptomatic cases that our risk assessment on all this changed. So they wanted people to be exposed to this deadly virus that could have all been stopped by masks until they knew that asymptomatic people could carry it. But there are plenty of people that don't show symptoms with any respiratory virus that will be contagious before they show symptoms. Do you see what I mean? There's a problem here, friends. There's some aspects of this that you haven't been told the truth about. That's for sure. And there's going to be increased media panic now. Because remember, Trump is still the president. He is still the president. And as long as he is still the president, there is an incentive to make this as miserable and horrible for everybody as is possible. And so you have Dr. Gupta over CNN. Over at CNN. Here he is, play 19.
That's what we're seeing here. And I think the idea that so many of these deaths that are happening in the United States are preventable just adds to that idea that this is a true humanitarian crisis. The Doctors Without Borders have come to the United States to do their work. They go to the hottest spots in the world. They look at the earth and say, where are we needed? Well, they're needed here in the United States right now. So I know it's tough to hear. I've already gotten a lot of emails and social about the fact that I call this a humanitarian disaster, but I stand by it. It is. And hopefully it inspires people to do something about it.
What does he want us to do about it? Oh, shut up and listen to Democrats and wear that mask all the time. Wear that mask between bites of food. Wear that mask. Wear more masks. Double up on masks. Why not goggles? I don't understand. It's not that big of an imposition. Go through the rest of your life wearing goggles and a mask. What's the problem? For a disease that has a 99.7% survival rate? Okay. That seems to me to be a little bit extreme. Why not? Why not demand that we all wear N95 masks? N95 masks are better. Scientifically speaking, there's no doubt about it. An N95 mask is better for protection against inhaling pathogens, aerosolized pathogens. That's just a fact. So why not require that? Well, if you require that, you ask, well, if we're really going to save lives, shouldn't we have everybody wearing a full-on respirator? You know, we go around like we're all living in space, like we're on the planet Mars. Shouldn't we do that? Why not? You see, it's our fault. That's ultimately, but when I say it's our fault, it's not the fault of all the people dancing in the street last weekend in New York in huge crowds because they were so happy about Joe Biden's media declaration of victory. They're not at fault. It's anyone who questions this. They're the people. I wear a mask every day. I wear a mask all the time. I have to. I have no choice. I can't leave my home. It is not possible for me to leave my home without wearing a mask, without running afoul of New York state law right now. Cannot walk through a common area of my home, which I have to. I have to go through the lobby. There's no other way for me to get out. Have to wear a mask. I wear a mask all the time. So I'm just making the case that this is not doing what they say it's doing. And they're going to get increasingly irrational and panicked about this because as cases keep going up, intelligent people who are paying attention are going to say, we're all wearing masks. Cases are spiking. Going up. I thought your mask protects you. My mask protects me. They say, listen to the science. And I say, okay, I listen to the science. Explain to me why goggles and an N95 mask are necessary for aerosolized measles for a person who does not have immunity to it, and that a cloth mask is considered completely insufficient for that. But for this, it's great. Awesome. It's a super tool. Better even than a vaccine, the CDC director said. I'm sorry, we're not all sheep. Some people want answers and want to think about this. And at some point, I think it's also fair to say that this is a 5% reduction in cases total across the country, but it's a reduction for what period of time, let's say? Or maybe it's even a 30%. I don't know. No one knows the number. No one's ever really. Here's what they won't tell you. All of the previous testing about masks and influenza season, during the flu season, the previous major testing said that they couldn't prove any benefit to people wearing masks when the flu is spreading. There are lots of peer-reviewed studies looking at this. They ignore that now. This is different. This is a virus that's terrified of masks. It melts like a vampire in the sun when you wear a mask. You know what they really want you to do? They want you to bend the knee. Just do what they say. They like that. It makes them feel better. They've created a world full of anxiety about this for themselves, and they expect you to live in that too and do what they say. Here you go. Here's Don Lemon. Monsieur Don Lemon over at CNN. Play 7.
We've gotten better at treating this disease, at keeping people alive. It's not that it's changed, that it's morphed and all that, or it's less invasive or deadly or, or infectious. It is that we have gotten better at treating people, at keeping them alive. You don't throw them on ventilators right away. You keep their lungs strong. And, and the things that you went through, the advice that you gave people. Mm-hmm. So for everybody who's out there thinking, oh, well, it's no big deal, and then I don't wear the mask, and I don't want the lockdown. If you don't want the lockdown, it's very simple. Just do what the experts tell you. Socially distance, look out for others, wear a mask, so on and so forth. And then maybe we wouldn't have to close restaurants down and all of those things, which who wants that? Nobody wants that.
Now, I'm just going to tell you this. This is dumb, but it's Don Lemon, so it's not surprising. Restaurants are going to close down in some places, no matter how much mask wearing we do. I can assure you of that. They're not even open in New York right now. So, to close them down, they're 25% capacity, and they're probably going to take that away soon. They're already closing them at 10 o'clock at night. They're limiting the hours. Wear a mask, and we won't have to do this thing to you. This is the root fallacy of this. Do what we say, wear that mask, and we won't have to take all these unpleasant measures. They will take the unpleasant measures, even though we're doing these things they tell us to do, and then they'll say it's our fault. Sorry. We didn't want to have to do this to you. You're making us do this to you. You're making us lock you down. We didn't want to do this, but you didn't listen. Well, no, we did listen. There was an analysis in the Wall Street Journal. It was fascinating of how they got to this number, the 130,000 lives, I think it was, that would be saved with mask wearing between now and the end of the flu season, I think it is. So basically March of 2021. 130,000 lives, they say, will be saved. But the numbers in the study, and this is published in Nature Medicine, I think was the journal, and it was peer reviewed in like a day. So they just rushed this thing out. Oh, rush this thing out. Yeah, what a surprise. But the numbers they use in the study estimate that mask adoption in America is at the number it was at something like in maybe, nationwide, we're talking about now, not in places that were hard hit. It's like 40% nationwide. And that was back in March, April, I think. And so remember, we're already a lot of us. New York, I've been telling you, hit by the pandemic terribly. Everybody was masked. If you tried to go near anybody without a mask on, indoors, outdoors, whatever, it was like you were a vampire trying to suck their blood. Everybody was masked up, and cases just kept going and going and going. People kept dying. I'm here. I saw it. I'm in the most densely part of New York City, and I'm out and about all the time, multiple times a day. Everybody was wearing masks. Disease flourishing all over the place anyway. But, if we'd only worn masks more. That IHME, Institute for Health Metrics and Evaluation model that said 130,000 people will die was based on a 40% mask adoption number. We're more at 80% now, maybe as high as 90% nationwide. We're masked up all over the place. Everyone's masking up indoors, masking all over the place. According to the data that we have, 5% of Americans don't wear masks. 5%. I'm sure a lot of them live in rural areas or less populated areas, and they're not even coming to contact with people that much anyway. 5% aren't wearing masks. This was brought to that study's attention. This was all written by the Wall Street Journal, brought to that study's attention, and they were like, yeah, whatever. So they made a projection about how 130,000 lives would be saved based upon a completely erroneous sense of how many people are actually wearing masks right now. And when presented with that information, they go, yeah, whatever. Do what we say, peasant. Don't ask questions. That's what they're telling you.
What is your message to the people who apparently are tired of wearing the mask over their nose as well as their mouth. They think it's uncomfortable and annoying, and it's just too much for them to handle, so they're just not doing it. Thank you.
Thank you. You know what's really uncomfortable and annoying? When you die.
That's the argument. Wear a mask or you'll die. Do what we say or you'll die. That's what it's really come down to. This is where we are. Okay. That's really tough to have a worthwhile discussion around, isn't it? This is tyrannical stuff, folks. This is really troublesome. And I've been very disappointed all along at just how many Americans go along with this because fear. People are afraid. It's not like I'm immune to this. I haven't gotten some secret vaccine or something. I mean, I could get this too. I might end up doing, this show for, who knows, a week or two when I'm saying, guys, I got COVID. I'm a little sick, but I'm doing the show from home. So we'll be, no one's seeing me and I'll just keep trying to do it every day. And it could happen. But I want us to have as much of our lives back as possible. And I also want us to have our autonomy back. One aspect of this conversation that doesn't get nearly enough attention is the difference between taking precautions and safety measures that you yourself think are necessary for you and your health and mandates. They want mandates. They want the government to stick its finger in your chest and say, you are going to do this. Based on what again? Based on the certainty of a scientific thesis that they disagreed with 8 months ago? Doesn't that seem a little strange to you? Ah, yes. Government has all the answers.